We are now recording. Welcome once again. I'm just going to share the slides for today. So here we are in week 3 of the class, and today's session is a formal walk through the coursework briefing. I'm going to take you through the actual briefing document and look at a couple of examples and also just give you a sense about what it is I'm looking for, if you like. So we'll crack on with feedback first of all, as we do every week. This is just coming from the instant feedback from the class website, what people are saying. The only kind of piece of feedback in terms of what people have found interesting about last week's class was the segmentation, targeting, and positioning model. There are a couple of comments from people saying that they hadn't either covered that before or they found that part particularly interesting. That's good, and certainly you can refer to that kind of material in your coursework. So I'm glad some people found that interesting. There was nothing that anybody was saying that wasn't clear, which I'm pleased about. But if there is ever anything that you think wasn't quite clear or you'd like to talk more about, you're always free to leave it in the instant feedback, and I'll pick it up the following week. I'm going to start today's conversation on coursework from the instant feedback, and I think it's a hot topic. You see, I've actually quoted a couple of the pieces of feedback I received from the Any Suggestions, and these related to the coursework. So both quotes are asking about the possibility of being able to choose what group you go into. So first one saying we're choosing our groups for the group project from the tutorials still be an option. I believe that being able to choose would reduce a lot of stress that many students are feeling from uncertainty of their group members, a concern which has increased due to the online learning environment, which presents a number of issues. And second quote, can we not pick our own groups for the coursework? If people don't have a group, they can find people in the tutorial class. Online classes are already so awkward. I feel we should have the option to pick our own team members if we want to. And I should say I have also received a couple of direct emails from people in the class on more or less the exact same lines. So what I wanted to do is give a little bit of an explanation around about all this and give you some feedback on it. The difficulty that exists on this subject for the coursework is that the argument around the, let's call it the kind of anxiety or the obstacles that the online learning environment create as being something that would necessitate being flexible and allowing you to choose your group members. It also works the other way, which is that because we're online and because people aren't able to interact in the same way, there will be people on the course who just don't have the ability to fall back on their already established relationships with other people on the course. And that relates particularly to two groups of students. The first group is exchange students. So we have a number of students in the class who are on an exchange year and have not, they're joining Heriot Watt for the year, but they're not actually here and they don't have any or very limited means of meeting other Heriot Watt students. And the class is also an elective across the university, so there are also students on the class who are from a different school and are from different schools, I should say, across the university, meaning that they might not have established the same kind of networks on within the class group. as others might have. See, someone's put a comment on screen. Personally, I'm happy with how it is now, as you don't know enough people to be able to form a group. Yes, and that is the other side of this, which is it's very restrictive. If I make it open to everybody, then there will be a significant amount of students in the class. There will be a significant amount of students in the class who just don't get the opportunity to form groups. So I see the argument, and I understand why people are saying what they're saying, and the difficulty is that in establishing a sense of fairness and equity across the course, I obviously therefore limit the people who do have already established friendships and networks with their peers in the class, and I restrict you from taking advantage of those. But everybody who selects into a group on the basis of their friends is also restricting those who don't know others from getting mixed with the students of the course. So in balance, the decision I have come to is to stick with the way things are, and that's because what people are saying on the screen here, you don't always work with friends in real life. So there are other suggestions here. What about a section of at least one person you know? I think what I have to be clear on here is that for every person who will know someone else in the class and have a strong sense that they want to work with them, there will be someone who doesn't really know anybody. So, and I see the suggestion of doing a poll, but the problem with doing a poll is that the way of distinguishing, you see, if there's a majority of people who want to work with their friends, that might represent a democratic majority, but that doesn't actually represent the situation of all the people who don't vote for being able to work with their friends because they don't know anybody. So it's about equity. It's about making sure that it's fair for everybody, and that means that it places a sense of restriction on those who do have friends. It is better if it's random than it's fair for all groups. Someone is saying operations did it well on vision. You'll have to expand on that for me, perhaps. But I'm afraid it comes down to a matter of principle, the principle of fairness, which is it is not unfair on everybody to randomly assign groups because everybody's the same, but it is unfair to some people if I allow some people to choose, and on that basis, because of the online learning environment, I come down on the side of I will be allocating the groups on the basis of tutorials. Now, the only thing you can mitigate against that is that if the tutorials are smaller groups, and you and your friends could choose to take the same tutorial slot, and the kind of laws of averages suggest that probably one or two of you will end up in the same group together. And we just have to hope for that. This operations management comment, I just need to move to see a bit better. Sorry. Operations management, we were able to choose, and whoever was left got randomly assigned. Yes, I've considered that as an option, and I still feel, I'm afraid, I'm not wanting to kind of passively judge other courses, but I feel as though the doing that still actually discriminates against those who don't have any contact with others, because it means that I'm specifically assigning people to a group from a population of people who don't otherwise know each other. So I prefer it was distributed evenly. Yeah, indeed, direct entry, another population of students who haven't met people. So I know I've spent a bit of time explaining that, and part of the reason I wanted to take the time to explain it is because I do completely understand the preferences of people who will know others in the class. But as I say, uh, you are not being in any way disadvantaged by being randomly assigned. And I feel as though those who, for one reason or another, don't have those networks and relationships in place are being disadvantaged by allowing some people to choose. That's why I've decided to stick with assigning groups overall. And as I say, put yourself in the same tutorial as your friends, and fingers crossed, you find yourself in a group, perhaps with one of your pals or more. But if luck deals you a good hand in that way. But I hope you understand, and I agree. It's not perfect. If I chose one or the other, it was going to leave a group of people in a sticky situation or a less than ideal situation. And I still feel as though the hybrid approach of letting some people choose is actually still in a way disadvantaging those who don't know others. Yeah, I see the comment about thinking of it as if you start a job, you place the team with unknown people. I mean, all these things do apply. I agree. You know, in the real world, we don't always get to choose, but also in the real world, we do sometimes get to choose. But I think I'm going to move on from this now. I wanted to give it the time because I'm not ignoring it, and I have actually considered changing the approach. But as I say, it comes down to equity, and the only truly equitable approach is to assign everybody to a group. And I hope you understand. So let's move on. So we're looking at the coursework this week. As you know, it's worth 50% of your course grade, and all members of the group will get the score that the coursework submitted receives. There is a cover sheet where you declare the effort of everybody, and I'll say it now since it's on my mind, but when you're declaring the effort of everybody, that is your opportunity to, if issues emerge within your group around about the effort and the workload that different people have taken on, and what they've contributed to the final piece of work, you can account for that by agreeing to give them a percentage. So if someone has not particularly pulled their weight, then the group will have to agree it, but you can say that someone gets 80% effort, and that means that they will get 80% of the final mark that your assignment is awarded. Normally, everybody gets on, and it's 100% across the board, so everybody gets the whole mark. But that's a mechanism for distributing the merit of your work on the basis of the effort put in by the different members of the team. So hopefully you've downloaded the brief and had a look through it. If I'm going to go through some of it specifically today, but please, it sounds an obvious thing, but read the brief front page to back page, every word, and consider it and think about it. It's amazing how often people, once they get their feedback, it's apparent that they didn't actually really read the brief properly and fired ahead with doing their work. Make sure you've read the brief and you really engage with everything that's being asked of you. please. The idea of this course, and obviously the extent to which it really feels like a consultancy, is restricted on the basis of coronavirus, but you are still being asked to do some analysis on a real life organization, and therefore you should think of this as a genuine task. And the more you think about it as a genuine brief from a genuine client, and you're trying to really deliver something meaningful for them, the better you are likely to do. And in the past, we've had some really good examples of groups who have, really thought about how their proposals would actually play out in real life and what the implications for the client would be. So you're being hired to offer a creative marketing proposal designed to engage a particular market segment of the client. You will choose a segment of the market and assess the client's current offering for this segment by applying the marketing theories covered in class. You will then make recommendations for more effectively connecting with the segment and strengthening the marketing relationship with them. So this is taken directly from the brief, what's on screen now. If you've ever done a SWOT analysis, actually this breaks down more or less along the lines of a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you're being asked to identify the current strengths and weaknesses of the client's provision for the chosen audience. That means the segment that you have chosen to focus on. Frame them in terms of current literature and industry trends, and then propose a solution that will attend to the shortcomings/opportunities you have identified, ensuring that you also acknowledge the threats or risks that exist. So it's a simple process in its kind of logical sense of you having a look at what the client does and making sure that in analyzing what they do, you're using some of the materials that we cover in this class. So things relating to not-for-profit marketing, services marketing, customer relationship marketing, digital marketing. You're using bits and pieces of relevant theory from that to articulate your analysis of the things that you're noticing about the client, and you're then making recommendations on the basis of that analysis. So here's what they're doing, here's what it means, and here's what you think they should do in the future to either improve on or develop or extend the things that you've identified. So that's why it says shortcomings or opportunities, because you're, in looking at strengths and weaknesses, you might find that they're doing something terribly, and therefore you need to talk about what they would do to improve those. Or you might find that they do things particularly well, and therefore they might have opportunities to develop on them or extend them. And you can also mix and match, because a weakness might be an opportunity for improvement, if you like. The important thing is that you are demonstrating that you understand what's happening, and you're then making recommendations as to what they might do in the future to change that by either, as I say, building on good practice or addressing poor practice. And then you need to demonstrate that you're aware of risk. So thinking about that in a working business environment, what would the implications for doing this be, and what might the risks to the business, the organization, the National Museum in our case, what might the risks to the National Museum be by taking on the recommendations that you suggest? That doesn't mean that you're talking yourself out of your recommendations. It's just showing that you understand that by taking a decision, it will come with risks. There are always risks associated with any proposed action. So we're looking for understanding of the marketing concepts, analytical ability, independent research, preparedness and organization, and a logical structure. That means that I want to see that you have substantively used the theory and the material that is covered in the class topics as we go through them, some of which we also go a bit deeper into during the tutorials. So show that you're bringing some of the stuff that is covered in class into your analysis. It's not just I've looked at the National Museum's, I've decided to look at their Instagram and Twitter feeds, and here's the stuff that I think. We'd like to know what you think based on the literature that relates to the class materials. So you're using lots of references and academic sources to support what you're saying and give you a kind of language to use to describe what it is that you're analysing, and then build on that to make proposals of opportunities. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of videos now, and it's partly designed to get you thinking a little bit about, well, it's encouraging you to be creative as well, but get you thinking about what you might look at and trying to get a sense of your segments, how they behave. I'm going to jump to the first video now. So the first one we're going to look at is a video from the National Museum. So this is just some direction towards some of the content that exists online that could be content that you decide to use, to focus on in your analysis. I'm just giving us an introduction to the museum and what some of their segments look and sound like and what it is they're interested in. So let's watch this video first. Oh, that's disappointing. Sorry about that, folks. Let's try. I'm really sorry. I didn't realize it wasn't showing for you. Let me just try again.
It's just absolutely fantastic. He loved it. The scale of the skeletons are amazing.
It's great seeing all the dinosaur bones and to see how big they are, how big they would have been in real life. So you liked jumping, didn't you, to see how far your meteorite would come to Earth?
Yeah, they did. Feathers. They have feathers. I like the big T-Rex coming down the road.
It was all the different dinosaurs, seeing them all together, seeing the scale of them and the size of them.
Good range, like we have different ages in our family, so we all enjoyed it.
We're members of the museum, so like we see them all. But this one's been particularly good.
I enjoyed the film of the dinosaurs running through the city.
Interactive, really good for the kids. It's fantastic, really.
Utterly amazing.
It's good fun from the minute you go in the door right through the whole thing. There's plenty to see and plenty to do.
It's really good.
I'd say it was totally roarsome.
Okay, that worked. Apologies for the slight technical ineptitude there. My bad. So that's an introduction to the Tyrannosaurus Rex exhibition that the National Museum ran, not the whole of it last year because of coronavirus lockdown, but it does give you a little bit of a sense of the kind of people that belong to some of the segments. So if you've had a chance to look at the segmentation profiles that are available in both the coursework brief and separately as a separate PowerPoint in the assessment materials on vision, you'll maybe have related some of what you saw in that video to some of the segments, certainly. Now let's look at something completely different. We're going to look at the Museum of Ice Cream. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. It started in New York. Let's look at this one first. Jesus, sorry. Try that one again. Now, working?
Is to create a place that is universal. We kind of go and leave the outside world behind and be in a place that sparks imagination and really fosters creativity.
Okay, there's a second video that I'm going to show you, so I'm hoping to have third time lucky on the video since I've managed to make a complete arse of the first two. Let's go. So this is where the founder of the Museum of Ice Cream is talking about expanding on the sort of scope of how they reach their customers and what they offer them. Can you see it and hear it?
Interactive museums are popping up everywhere. But back in 2016, the Museum of Ice Cream was the first of its kind, and they've expanded into other fields too. Today, brand is more than just a museum. It's an empire. Mary Alice Bunn started the museum because she wanted to bring people together in an Instagram-worthy setting, but in real life.
And now the 26-year-old founder is expanding into retail with a new line of merchandise at Target and a store in New York City's meatpacking district.
In the summer of 2018, the museum had a pop-up store filled with colorful goods ranging from toys to packs of sprinkles. Soon, more shops will be opening nationwide.
Today, we're here at the Pint Shop, where the folks behind the Museum of Ice Cream sell more than just admission tickets.
Like the museum, the store is also interactive. You can Instagram from a giant pint of cherry ice cream or pose in a banana waterfall.
Our goal is to be the forefront of experiences. We want to create places which connect humans to each other and do that through not only experiences, but also product and play.
Let's go shopping.
Okay, so each aisle is dedicated to one of our 7 original ice cream pint flavors. Each product was inspired by the ice cream pint itself. So we're in the Nana Banana section, and it really is a foundation for you to curate your own ice cream social at home. This is really cute, Ellie. Keychain.
Oh, love that. Adorable.
Right?
What's the biggest seller of everything?
Our pint.
The ice cream itself.
The ice cream itself is our biggest seller.
The store also built out a tasting room where visitors can buy tickets to learn about the origins of each flavor.
Okay, so there's 2 main types of vanilla. Can you guess where they're from?
Well, Madagascar.
Yes.
And
the other islands?
Tahiti?
Yes.
Woo!
Amazing.
The pints and merchandise are available at the Pint Shop, but also nationwide at 1,800 Target stores. So why was it so important for the experiential brand to expand into products?
And I was like, how do I physically get the experience of Museum of Ice Cream into the homes of everyone? And we really saw ice cream as a medium to do that. We have been friends, partners, and collaborators with Target. We built an entire clothing line, shirt, my necklace, the kids line that really services the foundation of Museum of Ice Cream, being that it's rooted in imagination and creativity. We're super excited for them to be our first wholesaler of our ice cream paints.
Since its launch in New York City 3 years ago, the Museum of Ice Cream has attracted over 1 million visitors across 4 museums nationwide.
What's your goal for 30? Age 30.
30? That's 4 years away. I mean, hopefully we're on another planet at that time. Like, that's like Mars Museum of Ice Cream.
Okay. So I just wanted to follow up on that. You've seen a couple of videos now of 2 different museums, one of which is your client, the other which is something completely different, but I thought would be a useful comparator. The Museum of Ice Cream, if I can speak frankly, the reason I think it's an interesting example and something that you could maybe bounce off, if particularly if you're doing one of the segments that's, you know, the younger social scenesters, I think they're called, the segment for the National Museum, that is a bona fide Generation Z 21st century example of a business concept. There's a whole story that the founder tells around about how she moved to New York and she was lonely and she just felt that nobody in New York talked to each other, and so she started doing the only thing that she thought made her happy, and that the only way that she could meet other people was over ice cream. So she used to go to ice cream shops, and everyone loves ice cream, so she would meet people and she would make friends in New York, and that gave her the idea to start the Museum of Ice Cream. Now, if I can be perfectly frank, I don't buy that story. I think it sounds a little bit contrived, and when you look at the Museum of Ice Cream, you can see that it is a concept founded on the idea of social media engagement. It's not really a museum, for a start, and all of the installations are designed to create Instagrammable settings that people can use that, you know, make their Instagram more attractive to people and get them more likes and all the rest of it. And that has filtered down the value chain and across the product chain. So they've opened up a store attached that sells physical products, and you know, it's a museum of ice cream that has only recently added ice cream to the things that it offers. So it has all these interesting 21st century inverted concepts of what it is to engage with customers. So the engagement, you know, this process of talking about experiences, and also the paradoxes. And you remember that the whole thing of this class is to be a little bit critical and to think of alternative viewpoints. The paradox of the Museum of Ice Cream is that it talks about, as she said, it's about being at the forefront of experiences and connecting humans to each other. Yet, who's saying Patrick would be the last thing that you'd visit in New York City? Yes, good point. It excludes other generations. The paradox is that all the installations are designed to get you to engage on social media. So you are, by virtue of the fact you're there to share it on social media, you're not connecting actually physically with those that you are with. So there's a paradox there in the whole concept of the Museum of Ice Cream. And notice, if you watch back on the second video when the interviewer says, "What's your biggest seller?" and she doesn't know the answer. And that's to be forgiven. A business owner that's got 4 different sites running and multiple different products, you might not have the answer top of mind, but her answer is so obviously strategic. I listen to that and she goes, "What's your biggest seller?" Our ice cream pints. And I'm thinking her brain is going, what's the thing that has the biggest margin that we sell that I can say to the viewers of this video so that people will buy more of it? The ice cream, which probably does have one of the biggest margins. So you can see the strategic brain of what is clearly she's a pretty shrewd entrepreneur, I would say, and she's had a good idea and she's really built a brand. And if you want to look more into it, please do. But it gives you probably at the really, really contemporary and innovative end of the spectrum of what museums. I don't know if you could classically term what they do as a museum, but they certainly call themselves a museum. Therefore, they are competing with, you know, the Guggenheim and the Met in New York. So it gives you a point of comparison, and yeah, something to stimulate your critical brains on what museums look like and how they engage customers and what the purpose for engaging those customers is. Because she mentions education, but you could take that with a pinch of salt, feasibly. Right, moving back to our coursework brief. That is an encouragement for you to think about the segments carefully. Now, if I can encourage you to do one thing carefully in preparation for the coursework, that is to read the brief and read the segments carefully. Things to point out about the segments that are important for you is if you go on onto the PowerPoint that's on Vision, so there are 2 files under the coursework brief on the Vision site. The second one is the tutorial, is the segmentation for the National Museum, and it states there that those segments are British universe, so they're domestic visitors. So be careful in when you're looking at the segment that you choose from the segments that are presented. Be careful that you realize that we're talking about a specific, as they call it in those slides, universe of visitors. So you're not looking at the entire realm of visitors, because somewhere like the National Museum of Scotland has a lot of overseas visitors, but this is about their UK-based visitors, so the universe of local visitors, and then that is subdivided into those different segments. So you're looking at a segmentation of a subsegment of the larger visitor segmentation project that the National Museum did. So it shows you the level to which different segments are established, but be careful about that, because I have had in the past people saying, talking about visitors from overseas, but actually those segments are to do with national visitors. So be sure that your the scope of your analysis stays within that. I'm not going to dwell on these next slides, but just to remind you that this is a real thing. So you can put this on your CV. You can say that you did consultancy work for the National Museum on the basis of doing marketing analysis for the museum, and obviously most of this work is going to relate to digital assets, but put it on your CV. It's a legitimate thing that you're going to get work experience from. I don't want to spend much time on slides like this, but just to remind you of what I said at the start, try and treat this as a real life project. You'll get more out of it, and you'll probably get better marks as a result. So the submission is Thursday of week 10 by 5 p.m. and as I say, equal share of the burden of the work. You should distribute that evenly among all your group members, and we will assign groups in tutorials next week. Here's the marking criteria, which is available on the coursework brief. You can see that the little different sections getting little different parts of the marks, but the bulk of the marks are coming from the analysis of the current offering and how you then identify opportunities and how you show your risk awareness in doing that. You get 5% for creativity and imagination. So just a reminder that yes, it's an academic piece of work, and you need to demonstrate due process of citing academic sources and showing your methodological approach to analysis. But using visual graphics and things like this, and using a bit of creativity that a marketing consultancy would naturally use, is part of the process. So please do be imaginative and think about how you can communicate. So if what you want to say is communicated better with an infographic, I'd rather you use that than try and describe it in words. Feel free to do that. I'm just going to jump to the examples now, because it's worthwhile pointing out a couple of good examples of work. Share my screen with you. Here we are. So this got top A previously. So you've got good executive summary that tells us what is happening. So you'll see from this coursework brief as a reminder that an executive summary is something that comes at the start of your work, but it tells us what is going to happen. Too many executive summaries are like the kind of blurb on Netflix that is trying not to give any spoilers away, and that's no use. What you're looking for in an executive summary is to tell you exactly what happens. We want the spoilers in the executive summary. Tell us the really important pieces that make up your report and make sure it's in there in its entirety. Remember, an executive summary is what it says on the tin. It's a summary for an executive. So if you were a consultancy and you had a CEO or a member of your board that wanted to know what had gone down in that particular consultancy project, they would be able to understand everything that happened in the project by reading the executive summary. That's the point of an executive summary. In the examples, you will see that there are a few things highlighted that are examples of good practice. You're going to introduce your consultancy. I want you to actually introduce your consultancy, like the people that are in it and what they do, not some imagined fancy sounding business stuff. Like, actually tell us what the skill sets of your people are. Here they're looking at social scenesters, which is the group that probably aligns most closely to most of you in terms of your demographics and interests. You can see use of referencing and citing academic sources, often citing the textbook from the course. That's absolutely fine, and there's some demonstration of wider reading in different places showing that this group have taken into account a lot of different literature to come to their conclusions. There are a few screenshots of different things in there. Then they go into analysis, and you can see they've done a little infographic here about wayfinding and customer journeys in the museum itself. That might not be particularly a possibility for you directly in your work this time around, but you might want to think about journeys online or journeys between different applications online. So journeys from, say, Instagram to the museum website, or to Facebook to the museum website. Got a question? So this example isn't available on Vision yet, but it is available if you've downloaded the slides for today. If you click on this slide, the pictures actually link to the examples. So you do have access to these examples at the moment, but I will put specific links on on Vision following today's session. Just going back to sharing screen with you guys. So they've split it up into different sections that are corresponding to different things that we covered in class, and that's absolutely fine. So they've thought about looking at CRM, and they've got things relating to branding, communications, and digital marketing specifically. And this is customer journeys, which is a topic that relates to customer relationship marketing as well. But you can see they've got things brought in from different academic sources. The important thing is that now I'm not going to go through any more of the examples in detail just because of time, but the important thing with the examples is that you see that there is some symmetry between what the consultancies are talking about in their analysis and then what they recommend. Now that might sound obvious, but it's amazing the amount of times you get a submission on this project where there's some quite good work done on the analysis. So they've methodically gone through using the sources from class, and they've shown what is required, what good things that they found out and that they've established on the basis of the research. And then when it comes to recommendations, they come completely from nowhere. The recommendations are pulled from somewhere else. And it seems that the work done in the first half of the project, where they've done the analysis and found strengths and weaknesses, they don't actually relate their recommendations to those strengths and weaknesses. And as I said, that sounds like an obvious thing that you would do, but when you get sort of stuck into the grafting of producing your work and obviously in a group work, you've got to coordinate amongst different people. Sometimes the front half can, or the back half of the work can start to drift away from what the front half is talking about. So it's just a reminder that you want there to be symmetry between the front and the back. So the strengths and weaknesses that you find in your analysis, the opportunities and threats and risk awareness needs to have some symmetry and has to have a relationship with those strengths and weaknesses. And I don't know if, again, it's this idea of people get tempted, they sort of feel like they're covering old ground, and they want to have a plot twist between strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. I don't want plot twists, like I say. I want spoilers. I want to know where you're going. I want to see your analysis and your research, find out what you've established, and then see that you use that to build recommendations in the second half. It's very straightforward, but don't overcomplicate it for no reason. So just finally going back to the slides before we finish up. I'll just talk briefly about these two slides, and then we'll jump into just looking at next week. So this does require you to operate professionally with each other and try to establish open communication and sharing amongst your group. So it's important that you get that right at the start. Try to be aware of both these extreme ends of the spectrum of team performance, which is people not doing anything and not engaging, or people being overly controlling and trying to drive their agenda without being courteous and taking on the views of others in the group. I will repeat this throughout the semester, but I will be very open to people getting in touch with me to communicate any issues that may exist. And some of those may relate to communication, but I would rather that issues were raised with me and I helped you to try and resolve them before you submit, because that's the professional and respectful way to do things, even if it might be a little bit uncomfortable. But do your best to try and establish good communication and understanding within your group at the start, and that should hopefully save you from encountering too many other difficulties. So skipping ahead to just finish off briefly for next week, we're looking at services marketing, and next week is really the first week where we're getting in deep with the subject matter of marketing perspectives as a course. So I'll take you just for a second to the website, which you've all got linked to through the vision page. The lecture prep section of the vision page will link you directly to the website. So here we are, we're on services. You'll see that there's a whole load of videos related to services for lecture preparation, and this will serve as some of the preparation for the tutorials as well. So there's an introduction, and then it's split into 5 parts. So you've got definition and scope in part 1, so there's a couple of short videos there. Service characteristics in part 2, and there are 3 short videos there. Most of the videos are sort of between 5 and 8 minutes long. Part 3, the extended mix, so how the marketing mix changes for services marketing. So you've got part 3A, 3B. Then we're looking at service quality and how we identify and establish service quality. And that's got 3 sections, each quite short videos. And then finally, we look at failure and recovery. So service failure is something that is inevitable, and we have to implement processes to recover from when services do fail. So there's a couple of parts there. There's some associated reading. This doesn't mean that you have to do all of that reading, but it may be helpful to you for your coursework, and it'll certainly be helpful to you for exam preparation. And there's example exam questions at the bottom. So that is us pretty much dead out of time for today's session. If there are any questions, I can stay around for the next couple of minutes. If you want to ask a question, I'd be delighted to. And if you have other questions, you can get in touch with me via email or on the forms on the website. But hopefully that's given you a little bit of detail and guidance on expectations for coursework. It's not the last time that I will ever mention coursework, so don't feel as though this is now you left on your own to deal with coursework. I'm always available, and I've got office hours every week as well if you want to drop in, and there are obviously open drop-in sessions later in the semester. So that is us. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your attention. I hope it continues to be sunny for most of you. I hope the snow doesn't cause too much trouble for those of you who are experiencing snow. And thanks again for your attention. And I will see you during tutorials through this week. Thank you.